Camouflage was a rapper from Savannah, Georgia who was popping in the early 2000s, but right as he was about to blow up, he was shot and killed outside the studio while holding his 16-month-old son. This is the sad story of Camouflage, the Savannah legend who was taken too soon. Camouflage grew up in the Hitch Village Projects, one of the most dangerous hoods in Savannah. He had a passion for music from a young age and used to freestyle for his family when he was a kid. As a teenager, Camouflage was inspired by legends like Tupac and NWA. Around the same time, he started taking music more seriously and wrote rhymes about all the violence and poverty he saw growing up. He picked the name Camouflage but spelled it wrong on purpose to avoid getting mixed up with Mac Phipps from No Limit Records, who is also known as the Camouflage Assassin. Camouflage's raw lyrics started building him a buzz in Savannah, and he soon joined a local rap group called Crime Affiliates. Crime Affiliates dropped their first project, Crime Pays, in 1999 through a local indie label called Pure Pain Records. It was an underground hit in Savannah and sold 20,000 copies. Even though that might not seem like a lot today, this was before you could upload your music to the internet and build a fan base online. So, Camouflage and the rest of Crime Affiliate had to hustle their mixtapes at shows and out of the trunks to their cars to get noticed. But that's also how they built such a strong fan base in Savannah. After that, Camouflage decided to go solo and started working on his own project. He dropped his first studio album, I Represent, in 2000. It was another local hit and sold over 50,000 copies. That was enough to get the attention of Universal Music Group, who offered Camouflage a distribution deal through one of their labels, Uptown Records. It seemed like Camouflage's dreams of becoming a major artist were about to come true, but before he had a chance to take things to the next level, he got caught up in some legal problems. Around that time, Camouflage was arrested for possession of crack cocaine. Even though the charges were eventually dropped, Universal decided not to pick up his contract. Even though it was a setback, Camouflage didn't let labels stop him, and he went right back to the independent grind. But that wouldn't be the end of his problems. In 2000, Camouflage and his friend Murdoch were arrested for the murder of a dude named Kenneth Capers, aka Boo. Police said that Camouflage and Murdoch were part of the Hitch Village gang, who had beef with Boo and his crew. Even though police tried to make them look like violent gang members, the facts didn't add up. Murdoch was a star point guard on the Savannah High School basketball team who got a scholarship to play at Atlanta Metropolitan College, and Camouflage was a rising rap star who had a bright career ahead of him. Even though they both had a criminal record, none of their charges were violent. Camouflage also had an alibi for the night of the murder and said that he was home asleep when Boo got killed. The murder charges were eventually dropped due to lack of evidence, but Camouflage still spent 3 months locked up and caught another charge for possession of cocaine. But he didn't let that stop his hustle, and Camouflage got right back to making music and doing shows. He opened up for legendary acts like 8Ball and MJG, Scarface, Master P, Trick Daddy, and Ludacris. Then, in 2001, Camouflage dropped his second album, Strictly for the Streets, Drugs, Sex, and Violence, Volume 1. He wrote most of the material while he was locked up and poured his soul out in the booth as soon as he got out. Camouflage later said that making that album was really like putting his heart to the pen, and he was trying to write about his life and everything he knew about the streets. But he wasn't just rapping about the gangster lifestyle. Camouflage rapped about his struggle and the real things that were going on in the hood. The fans could feel his pain, and it set Camouflage apart from all the other rappers. Strictly for the Streets ended up being his breakout project and eventually went gold. It also featured the hit single, Cut Friends, which got a ton of radio play and became a major hit in the South. Suddenly, Camouflage started getting calls from all the major labels, including Def Jam South, Universal, and Atlantic. Camouflage also started kicking in with other rappers in the industry. He formed a close relationship with Lil Boosie, and he even dropped a song with Birdman in 2002 called Laying My Stunt Down, which was another local hit. Camouflage was already a legend in the South, and it seemed like only a matter of time before he blew up in the mainstream too. But before that could happen, his past caught up to him. In 2002, Camouflage was involved in an altercation on 61st Street in Savannah and ended up getting shot. He was taken to the hospital, but only had minor injuries and was released not long after. Even though it wasn't that serious, it was a wake-up call for Camouflage, and he decided to move his family out of Savannah into the suburbs in Bryan County. The same year, he dropped his third album, Keeping It Real. Even though he was getting offers left and right, he decided to stay independent and released the project on Pure Pain Records. Camouflage was steadily growing his core following and had a major fan base in the South. It seemed like he was one hit away from blowing up and going mainstream. But before he had a chance, Camouflage was gunned down while he was leaving the studio with his infant son. On May 19, 2003, Camouflage was walking out of the Pure Pain Studios on 37th Street, holding his 16-month-old son, Yadon, when someone started letting off shots. Luckily, Yadon wasn't hit, but Camouflage was shot multiple times and had to be rushed to the hospital. Sadly, he didn't make it, and Camouflage was pronounced dead at the hospital at just 21 years old. His death was a major loss to the city of Savannah. Camouflage was already a local legend, and everyone thought he'd be the next rapper to make it big from the city. He had the perfect image, lyrical skills, and connections in the music industry. So, it seemed like only a matter of time before he blew up. But even moving out to the suburbs wasn't enough to protect Camouflage from his past. The murder is still technically unsolved, and no one knows exactly what happened. But some of his friends and family members say the streets know exactly who did it, and even the police named the suspect. According to court documents, police think Camouflage's murder was connected to a wave of shootings that started with the death of a dude named Felix Scott. Felix Scott was a big-time drug dealer in Savannah. 3 days before Camouflage was murdered, Felix was also shot and killed while sitting in his white pickup truck. Hours later, there was another shooting in the Hitch Village projects that killed 27-year-old Michael Grant. Michael Grant was a close friend of Camouflage. 2 days after Michael died, Camouflage did a radio show at a local station called 94.1 The Beat and talked about the situation. He paid his respects to his friend, but live on air, he also said, "Mike, we gon' ride for you." His friends and family said that Camouflage meant he would never forget Mike and always had his back, but some people think Camouflage was promising Mike that he'd get revenge. There's even a rumor that when Felix Scott was killed, he had a list of people he wanted dead. Then, after Camouflage did that interview, someone threw a brick through the window of the radio station with the list of names of the people who were on that list. The rumor is unconfirmed, but Camouflage was shot and killed just 24 hours after the interview. Even police believe that Camouflage's death was connected to the murders of Michael Grant and Felix Scott. Within a 5-day period, 4 people were shot in Savannah: Camouflage, Michael Grant, Felix Scott, and another dude named Everett Simmons. Everett was shot while sitting in a car on Mosley and Long Street. After a short chase, police arrested 2 suspects, Antonio Griffin and John Lee Robinson. The police wouldn't say much about the case, but they did confirm that all 4 shootings were connected. The cops also announced that they were looking for 2 other suspects in the murders of Camouflage and Michael Grant, and put out warrants for 2 dudes named Dorian Orr and Stephen Edward Rawson. After finding out that he was wanted for murder, Dorian Orr went on the run and hid out in New York, where he had a family. But a fugitive squad eventually tracked him down and brought him back to Georgia. Once back in Georgia, Dorian Orr was then charged with the murder of Michael Grant. Police also believe that Dorian was responsible for killing Camouflage, but they didn't have enough evidence to build a case against him. But prosecutors did track down a witness who was willing to testify that he saw Dorian kill Michael Grant in front of a house party in Hitch Village. The motive for the murder was to get revenge for the death of his friend, Felix Scott. Dorian Orr was found guilty of the murder of Michael Grant and sentenced to life in prison. But after a few years, Dorian was able to get his sentence reduced on a technicality. In 2006, the Georgia Supreme Court decided that Dorian should get a new trial. During his first trial, prosecutors played a 911 call reporting the murder of Michael Grant. On the call, there was a faint voice in the background that sounded like someone saying Dorian's name. The court later ruled that the phone call evidence could not be used in the case. The court couldn't prove if the voice was actually saying Dorian's name, and the person who made the call couldn't be found to testify. So, the court decided the jury shouldn't have heard the call in the first place and granted Dorian the right to a new trial. But instead of going through the process all over again, Dorian accepted a plea deal. He agreed to plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter and accepted a 10-year sentence. 10 years is pretty light, considering even the police think that Dorian caught 2 bodies back to back. But according to Dorian's lawyer, his guilty plea was only to help his situation, and he still claims that he's innocent in both cases. Sadly, no one was ever arrested for the murder of Camouflage, although there are several theories about what happened. Some say Michael Grant and Camouflage were selling drugs for Felix Scott, but they had a falling out. Felix added their names to his kill list, so Michael and Camouflage decided to take them out before Felix had a chance to get them. Another theory is that it was all connected to a beef between Hitch Village and their ops. Over the next few years, some of Camouflage's friends would also lose their lives to gun violence, including his homie Murdoch. After they were released for Boo's murder, Murdoch kept going back to jail for drug and gun charges. He got out in 2005 and tried to turn his life around. He was planning on marrying his girlfriend and starting a business together so they could get out of the streets. But before he had the chance to make it out, Murdoch was also shot and killed. On January 2nd, 2007, Murdoch was with a homie from Hitch Village named James Nathan Johnson. They went with a group of friends to James' aunt's house on the 4200 block of Guatemala Street to pay respects to her son who had just died. While they were standing outside the home, someone pulled up and started letting off shots. Murdoch ended up getting shot in the head and died on the scene. James was also shot in the hand but was taken to the hospital and treated for his injuries. At first, police accused James of killing Murdoch because he was strapped at the time. so James was arrested for murder while he was still recovering at the hospital, but his charges were later dropped. Police also named 2 other suspects in Murdoch's murder, Tian Spencer and Aaron Michael Davis. Aaron Michael Davis was later arrested on drug charges, but before they could catch up to Tian Spencer, he was also gunned down. With so much death and violence going on, police launched a major investigation into the gang war in Savannah called Operation Raging Waters. The investigation focused on 3 major gangs: the Waters Avenue Crew, the Gwynedd Street Posse, and the Hitch Village Gang. Police believe that these 3 gangs alone were responsible for 20% of violence in the city. The investigation lasted 5 months, and when it was over, they booked 27 dudes from 3 gangs. According to police documents, Tian Spencer was a high-ranking member of the Waters Avenue crew and the main suspect in Murdoch's death. Both of their murders set off a wave of shootings in Savannah that killed at least 6 people and injured 20 others. Even though most of the violence happened between 06 and 07, police believe the beef was going on for years and went all the way back to the murder of Camouflage. Sadly, Camouflage never got the chance to escape the streets and take over the rap game. But at least there was one good part to the story. At the time of his death, Camouflage had a baby girl on the way. Camouflage knew he was about to have a girl, so he named her Flage, which was inspired by his rap name. At first, the mother didn't like the name, but after Camouflage was killed, she decided to go with it because it was his last wish. Flage Johnson ended up carrying on the family legacy and made a name for herself as a rapper and basketball star. Flage started rapping when she was only 7 years old and got a lot of love in Savannah for being Camouflage's daughter. She started doing shows around the city and even dropped an EP that was getting played on the radio. When Flage was 12, she appeared on season 3 of The Rap Game, a reality show on Lifetime TV hosted by Jermaine Dupri. Being on the show exposed her to a national audience and helped Flage learn the skills she needed to become a major star. Even though Flage didn't win the competition, it still opened a lot of doors for her. At 14, Flage competed on America's Got Talent, which introduced her to an even bigger audience. She made it all the way to the quarterfinals, which was huge for her career. But even though she was a talented rapper, Flage also had another talent: basketball. She started out hooping in the neighborhood and developed her skills by playing with the boys down at the local rec center. In high school, Flage started playing for Team Elite on the EYBL Nike circuit. She started winning all kinds of awards and competitions, and Flage was the only girl to play in the Iverson Classic Showcase. That got her noticed by scouts, and suddenly Flage was getting offers from all the top colleges in the country. But even though Flage was killing it as a basketball player, she wasn't willing to give up on her dreams of being a rapper. Most of the schools she was getting offers from didn't understand and told her she needed to focus on one or the other. The only school that understood her vision was LSU, and they took Flage to the studio on her first visit. So Flage knew LSU was the perfect place for her to be and accept their offer. It definitely helped that her godfather and mentor in the rap game was also from Baton Rouge, Lil Boosie. Boosie was close to Camouflage before he died, so when Flage started doing her thing, Boosie took her under his wing and started showing her the ropes. So signing to LSU seemed like the perfect fit. At the time, the LSU women's basketball team was decent, but they never even made it to the Final Four. Once Flage joined the team, the pieces started coming together. Flage already had a deal at Roc Nation for her music and a brand deal with Puma before she even went to college. So bringing Flage onto the team was a big look for LSU. After she committed to playing there, the coaches were able to recruit other big stars like Angel Reese and Kateri Poole so they could build an all-star roster. It ended up being a great investment because Flage helped the LSU women's team win the 2023 NCAA championship against Iowa. Sadly, Camouflage didn't live long enough to watch his daughter go on and do all these big things, but he's still remembered as a legend in the South, even though he was only in the game for a few years. It's clear that his influence helped put Flage in a position to win, and she's been keeping his name alive ever since.